Stop negative self-talk, rewire your mind for confidence. Negative self-talk is one of the most subtle yet powerful forces shaping our inner lives. Unlike external criticism, which comes from others, negative self-talk originates from within us. It is not an enemy attacking from the outside but a habit of thinking that gradually becomes ingrained in our mental landscape. Over time, it can feel so natural that we stop noticing it, much like background noise we no longer consciously hear. Yet its impact on our emotions, behavior, and sense of self can be profound. At its core, negative self-talk is usually the result of learned mental patterns rather than an objective reflection of reality. Many of us develop these patterns early in life, often as a response to criticism, failure, rejection, or stressful environments. The mind, in an attempt to protect us from pain, learns to anticipate danger by focusing on what could go wrong. Ironically, this protective instinct can become harmful when it turns inward and starts attacking our own worth. My story from the past. I remember an event at work that, looking back today, clearly reveals how my inner world was functioning at that time. Back then, I did not understand it. I lived in constant tension, as if someone were always watching me, waiting for my next mistake. One day, my boss called me into his office. The moment I heard him on the phone, I felt a tight pressure in my chest. My heart began to race, my hands grew sweaty, and my mind filled with anxious thoughts. I wondered, why is he calling me? What did I do wrong this time? Is he going to criticize me? Punish me? Maybe even fire me? Inside, a familiar stream of self-critical thoughts took over. I always mess things up. I'm not good enough. I'm a bad worker. Everyone else is more capable than me. With this mindset, I walked into his office. I sat down stiffly, shoulders hunched, quietly waiting for what felt like an inevitable blow. It was like a child waiting for punishment. To my surprise, my boss began speaking in a completely different tone than I expected. He told me that I had handled a problem in the department exceptionally well, that my approach had improved the work process, and that as a result, he would raise my salary. At that moment, most people would have felt proud, relieved, or happy. I did not. Before I could even fully absorb his words, I started deflecting the praise. I explained that the success was mainly due to my colleagues, not me, since they were the ones who carried out the changes. I came up with several reasons why I did not really deserve the recognition. In a way, I was arguing against my own success. My boss listened quietly and then shifted the conversation to another topic. I did receive the pay raise, but it brought me little inner satisfaction. It took almost 20 years before I truly began to understand what had been happening inside me, how deeply rooted my negative self-talk was, how afraid I was of making mistakes, and how unable I was to accept my own worth. Common forms of negative self-talk. All-or-nothing thinking. One of the most common forms of negative self-talk is all-or-nothing thinking. In this pattern, we see the world in black and white terms with no room for nuance. A single mistake becomes proof of total failure. For example, someone might think, I always mess things up, or, I can never do anything right. This way of thinking ignores the complexity of human experience. No one always fails or always succeeds, yet the mind simplifies reality into extremes, making us feel inadequate and hopeless. Catastrophizing. Closely related to this is catastrophizing, where the mind jumps to the worst possible conclusion. A small setback, like an awkward comment in a meeting or a minor mistake at work, suddenly feels like the beginning of a complete disaster. The person may imagine losing their job, being humiliated, or being rejected by everyone around them. This reaction is deeply emotional rather than rational. It often stems from anxiety, past trauma, or fear of rejection. The mind tries to prepare for danger by imagining it in its most extreme form, but in doing so, it traps us in constant stress. Mind reading. Another powerful pattern is mind reading, where we assume we know what others think about us. Instead of asking for clarification or accepting uncertainty, we fill in the blanks with negativity. For instance, if someone looks distant or quiet, we might conclude, they think I'm stupid, or they don't like me. In reality, that person might simply be tired, distracted, or dealing with their own problems. Yet our insecure mind interprets ambiguity as personal rejection. Self-labeling. Similarly, self-labeling is a deeply damaging form of negative self-talk. Instead of criticizing a behavior, I made a mistake, we attack our identity, I am a failure. This shift from action to identity is crucial. When we label ourselves as worthless, stupid, or unlovable, we begin to believe that these traits define who we are. This can lead to shame, low self-esteem, and avoidance of challenges because we feel fundamentally flawed rather than capable of growth. Discounting the positive. Many people also engage in discounting the positive. Even when something goes well, they minimize it or attribute it to luck rather than their own effort or ability. A compliment feels uncomfortable or suspicious. Achievements seem accidental. This pattern often develops in people who were raised in overly critical environments or who fear appearing arrogant. However, constantly rejecting praise reinforces the belief that they are not good enough. Overgeneralization. Another harmful habit is overgeneralization, where one negative event becomes proof of a broader truth. For example, one romantic rejection may lead someone to believe, no one will ever love me. One poor performance at work becomes, I'm bad at my job. This mental shortcut ignores all the evidence that contradicts it, past successes, positive relationships, and personal strengths. Personalization. Personalization is another painful pattern. In this case, individuals blame themselves for events that are beyond their control. If a friend is upset, they assume they caused it. If a team project fails, they take full responsibility even if many factors were involved. This can create overwhelming guilt and a sense of being constantly responsible for other people's emotions and circumstances. Rigid should statements. Finally, the use of rigid should statements can create inner pressure and self-criticism. Thoughts like, I should be more successful by now, I should never make mistakes, or I should always be productive, set unrealistic standards. When we inevitably fail to meet them, we feel guilty, ashamed, or frustrated. These internal rules often come from societal expectations, family pressures, or comparisons with others. Recognizing negative self-talk. Your mind is not the enemy, it is overprotective. Despite how painful these thought patterns can be, it is important to recognize something crucial: our minds are not our enemies. Even when they generate harsh or frightening thoughts, they are often trying, in their own misguided way, to protect us. From an evolutionary perspective, the brain evolved to detect threats and avoid danger. Focusing on negativity helped our ancestors survive in unpredictable environments. However, in modern life, this survival mechanism can become overactive and turn against us. We cannot control thoughts, but we can control our response. We cannot completely control the automatic thoughts that arise in our minds. Sudden worries, fears, or self-critical ideas will appear whether we like it or not. Trying to suppress them often makes them stronger. However, what we can control is how we respond to them. This is where true psychological freedom begins. Observing thoughts instead of believing them. Instead of believing every negative thought as truth, we can learn to observe them with curiosity rather than judgment. We can say, this is just a thought, not a fact. This simple shift creates distance between us and our inner critic. It allows us to question whether the thought is realistic, helpful, or fair. The brain's negativity bias. Research in psychology shows that negative stimuli, such as unpleasant thoughts, emotions, or social experiences, tend to have a stronger impact on us than positive ones. We remember criticism more vividly than praise. We replay embarrassing moments far longer than joyful ones. This is known as the negativity bias. It explains why negative self-talk can feel so powerful and persistent. Why understanding this bias is empowering. However, understanding this bias can also be empowering. It reminds us that our tendency toward negativity is not a personal failure but a feature of the human brain. Knowing this, we can consciously work to balance our perspective by actively noticing positive experiences, achievements, and qualities in ourselves. Learning compassionate self-talk. Developing healthier self-talk does not mean pretending that everything is perfect or denying difficulties. Instead, it means treating ourselves with the same compassion we would offer a close friend. If a friend made a mistake, we would likely say, "It's okay, everyone messes up sometimes." Learning to speak to ourselves in this gentle way can gradually reshape our inner world. From self-judgment to self-understanding. Over time, we can replace harsh self-judgment with self-understanding. Instead of, "I am a failure," we can say, "I made a mistake, and I can learn from it." Instead of, "Everyone hates me," we can remind ourselves, "I don't actually know what others think." Instead of, "I should be perfect," we can accept that being human means being imperfect. The goal is balance, not silence. Ultimately, negative self-talk is not something we must eliminate completely. It is a natural part of being human. The goal is not silence, but balance, to allow thoughts to pass through our minds without letting them define who we are. By cultivating awareness, patience, and self-compassion, we can transform our inner dialogue from a source of pain into a tool for growth and self-discovery. Building resilience through a kinder inner voice. In doing so, we do not become free from struggle, but we become stronger, kinder, and more resilient in the way we relate to ourselves and our experiences.